Bonsoir à tous, et merci d'être venus. C'est pour moi un vrai plaisir d'accueillir Gaetano Palumbo, parce que nous nous connaissons depuis très longtemps à présent. Gaetano travaille pour le World Monument Fund et Gaetano a travaillé sur de très nombreux sites, depuis Erbil jusqu'à jusqu'au Maroc. Et aujourd'hui, il va nous faire une présentation particulièrement intéressante donc sur Qusayr Amra, un des sites vraiment emblématiques de la période omeyyade en Jordanie, et donc qui est particulièrement intéressant par ses peintures qui sont absolument uniques dans tout le monde arabe. Je ne vais pas m'étendre, mais je voulais encore une fois te remercier au nom de l'ambassade de France et du musée du Calat. Et puis je te laisse sans plus attendre faire une description de Qusayr Amra.
Merci beaucoup. Et je voudrais remercier en particulier l'ambassade de France pour cette invitation et le musée du Calat de Bahrain. Ma présentation c'est en anglais. And I'm sorry, I'm going to switch to English. I wish I could actually present in Arabic, which is unfortunately not a language that I can master. Although I've been working in the Middle East for more than 20 years at this point, in various projects. What we're going to see tonight is actually a history of a rediscovery of a monument. And you'll understand why as we go. It's actually one of those cases where conservation becomes research, and where things that you would not expect happen. And you'll be the first, among the first, to see some extraordinary discoveries that this project has achieved. Jordan has 4 World Heritage Sites in the list. 15 sites are on the tentative list. But Jordan is a country, as many in the Middle East, endowed with a huge amount of archaeological remains. Almost 11,000 archaeological sites are registered in the country. And this is, in our estimate, just the tip of the iceberg, because there are vast areas of the countries that have never been properly explored archaeologically. So the 4 World Heritage Sites are Qusayr Amra in the north, in the central of the country, about 80 kilometers east of Amman, and about 25 kilometers west of Azraq, which is a big oasis area in eastern Jordan. Then we have Rasas, which was inscribed in the World Heritage List in 2004, another Byzantine site. Petra, inscribed on the same year of Qusayr Amra, 1985, and Wadi Ram, which is the most recent inscription, which was inscribed in 2011, and it's a mixed cultural and natural site, while the other 3, of course, are just cultural sites. Qusayr Amra is wrongly described as a desert castle, and with this name, desert castles, there is a huge number of sites which have different shapes and different functions, actually. So we go from bathhouses like Hammam al-Sarra, which is in the north, Qusayr Amra itself. We have real castles like Azraq, which were fortresses during the Roman and Byzantine period, and then maintained their fortress status during the Umayyad and early Islamic periods. We have caravanserais like Harrane, which is not far from Amra itself. We have big palaces, but not real castles, like Qasr al-Tuba in the middle of the desert, or Qasr al-Mushatta, which is near the airport of Amman, and the bas-reliefs from Qasr al-Mushatta, for example, are mostly in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, because they were donated by the Ottoman emperor to the German emperor late 19th century. So as you can see, a huge amount of sites. But what is really the function of these sites? Why so many Umayyad sites in the Badia, in the desert area of Jordan? Well, the Umayyads were establishing themselves as prince and as the first really dynasty, Islamic dynasty in the country. They still needed to maintain and to develop relationship with the local communities, especially with the Bedouin tribes. Some of these Bedouin tribes were Christian, some others were already adhered to Islam, but it was important for the caliphs of the Umayyad period to establish this relationship with these tribes. Moreover, it's said that being the capital Damascus and being a big city, they may have some nostalgia about their origins of herders and desert dwellers. So it's possible that there is also some kind of a romantic or a nostalgic element in there too. But let's go forward with that, and let's talk about Qusayr Amra itself, which is a small building, but it's a vast archaeological area, as you can see from this map. So if we can, I don't know if you see the arrow, or should I point out what is? See, the archaeological area is much larger. We have the ruins of a real Qusayr here, a small, relatively small, it's about 25 meters by 25 castle here. There are some structures there that I'll describe a little bit later. A tower, maybe the ruins of a mosque, but we are not really sure about that. There is another remains of large walls and a sect, and 1 and 2 sakia or wells, which were used for various purposes, including irrigation of probably gardens. So we're talking about here a large estate, which included also hydraulic works. We are in the bed of a large wadi system, which has still today carries a lot of water, especially in winter when there are rains there. Here is the context. You can see that the building itself, it's in the bed of a wadi, to the point that in the 80s and 90s, this large system had to be built in order to avoid floods. This is a picture taken in February this year. As you can see, there can be quite a lot of water in the wadi. But it's pretty much a barren area. So the raison d'etre of this building right there, it's probably because of the possibility also probably of doing hunting in this area. I'm sure that a lot of animals were drawn to this area especially during winter. Let's take a look at the sequence of intervention of the site. We know that the building was built between 723 and 743, and I'll tell you why in a little bit later. It was abandoned with the fall of the Umayyad Empire in 750, when they were defeated by the Abbasids. We know that it was visited by Arab travelers between the 14th and 16th century because there are graffiti on the walls left by them, sometimes with dates of the Hijra. We know that it was visited probably by Ulrich Setzen in 1806 and Burckhardt, the discoverer of Petra, in 1812. However, it's very short descriptions, and they were just footnotes in their books. The real discoverer of the site, discoverer to the Western world, because it was a site that was well known by the Bedouins. It was used by the Bedouins for shelter and so on. It's Alois Musil, a Czech explorer that was there in 1898. He returned there in 1900 and 1901 to record the site. The first conservation intervention at the site, however, are in the 60s. The first major conservation was between 71 and 79 with a Spanish conservation project which proceeded to the cleaning of the mural paintings inside the site and the reinforcing of a wall that was collapsing. 1985 is inscription on the World Heritage List, and then a very impressive and comprehensive project, Franco-Jordanian project, led by Gazi Biche, ex-director of Antiquities, and Claude Viderguig, which is now at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris. They recorded the site at scale, especially the mural paintings at the scale of 1:1, and they also proceeded with some exterior intervention in order to better protect the site from floods and from other dangers. In 2008, the site was assessed by the Department of Antiquities as being in danger, especially at the mural painting level, and they asked World Monuments Fund to inscribe the site in the watch list, which was done. And then financial support was provided by a donor, followed by the Italian government, and the involvement of the National Institute for Conservation from Italy, which is a well-known and renowned institution that has expertise, especially in mural painting conservation. And the project itself is what I'm going to present now since 2010. Brief description of the structure. So I said it's a small bathhouse, and it's in the classical term. We have a very large hall at the entrance with 3 aisles separated by 2 slightly pointed arches. Then we have a so-called throne room in the center, 2 small alcove rooms without windows, with a nice mosaic pavements. And then the bath proper are accessed from a small door here. You have a so-called apoditerium, which is a changing room. Then we have a tepid room and a hot room here. On the outside, we have a furnace where the water and the hot air was channeled into the building through a classic system. The water was drawn from a 30-meter deep well here, this one. And the water was drawn by animals carrying, basically turning a wheel system that was carrying the water up from the well into a cistern. The cistern is quite high, so water can have pressure to go down into the channels and access the building. So quite classical system of use of this bathhouse. The site today, it's a protected site. It's visited by about approximately 150,000 visitors a year, which is not a huge number, but it's not small either. This is the main hall inside. As you can see, there are paintings, but you really have to look to understand what you're looking at. And some of these paintings are actually quite impressive. And unique in what we know of the early Islamic art. For example, this the top photograph here shows one of the vaults of the main hall, representing different type of arts and crafts. And actually, in particular, this one is like a cartoon story. You have all the phases of construction of this building. So you have, in this line, you have the extraction of the stones, the cutting of the stone in the quarry, the transportation of the stone on camelback, and then by hand to the work site where they are built in the wall. Then you have a second line here, which has everything to do with ironsmithing. So the preparation of the old iron fixtures that are used for the construction. Then you have a third line that narrates the use of, for example, I mean the construction of wooden fittings, the windows, and so on and so forth. And then a fourth line, which is mostly destroyed, unfortunately, which has the production of the lime mortar to be used on site, from the cooking of the stones to the slating of the mortar and so on and so forth. Very interesting thing. We have also a unique thing in the dome of the caldarium of the hot room, which is this dome